Back live with you tonight on In Focus, and thanks for staying on. Of course, we're back to that story that has been leading tonight. Executive Mayor of the city of Ekurhuleni, Tania Campbell, has been ousted, and this happened today in a motion of no confidence. Joining us now to discuss the latest developments in Ekurhuleni are Gauteng ANC Chairperson Panyaza Lesufi, Gauteng DA leader Solly Msimanga, and Gauteng ActionSA leader Bongani Baloyi. Gentlemen, good evening and good to have you with us, and thank you very much for your time today. I suppose congratulations to the ANC for getting that metro back. The EFF coming out earlier on saying this was really premature, not discussed with them also. But not only that, they're saying that there is just this hunger in the ANC to just want to get power by all means.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the opportunity. It's just unfortunate when the ANC is voted out by a coalition government. It's democracy. When the ANC wins, it's the opposite. It's power hungry, corruption and other things. I really feel that line is exhausted now. It's a tired line. You can't have a minority government. In Ekurhuleni, we all knew it was a minority government, and the minority can't rule over the majority. So if the majority agreed to work together and put up a motion, and the motion was voted through democratic means, we should accept that as a democratic outcome rather than attach sentiments that are undemocratic. You can't just cry over spilled milk and have sour grapes. Reality is that democracy was exercised. We put a motion, convinced other political parties to join us, and they joined us, and they supported our motion. So
well, it remains a minority. I mean, if you look at those numbers, 193 against, which means if the EFF, for any reason, any time, they could vote against you. We could see what is now happening in the Joburg Council, where, again, a mayor is out, a mayor is in, and instability is created.
We don't mind. We enjoyed our stay at opposition benches. Were very effective. Actually, it was the effectiveness of our role as an opposition party that attracted other parties to try to work with us, and accepted that. Even if it was one vote, it's democracy. A win is a win, regardless of whether other people abstained or not.
Yeah. Solly, as the Democratic Alliance, you are well aware that with your coalition partners, even if they remained loyal to you, without the support of a party like the Economic Freedom Fighters, you were not going to win this motion of no confidence. Why the scathing attacks and remarks you made on the EFF on the build-up to this motion of no confidence? In fact, the leader there saying you called them extortionists.
Well, I don't think that the EFF was called extortionist. We said that we don't want to go into a coalition with a party that is actually seeking to divide the nation. A party that seeks to, the leader seems to be talking to killing of a particular race. The leader that is openly now talking about doing something that is constitutionally illegal. I'm talking about grabbing of private land or grabbing of land, and actually then forcing municipalities then into a situation where they will have to be provided for services. While we already know that municipalities are already sitting with a serious financial constraint. And these are some things that we have been saying that, we have said to our voters that these are things that, we will be looking for in terms of who we then want to talk to in terms of the formation of governments. And this is, for us, sticking to that principle of saying that if there's anybody who is not going to put at the center, the promotion and the protection of the Constitution, if somebody is going to then promote hate, and not contribute towards building of a nation, then we're having a serious problem with coalescing with that group or with that party. This is something that we said to our voters, and true to that, we have stuck to our principle. And as we said, Thabo, it's not staying in government by hook or crook or by all means possible. If there are principles that you've agreed on, you stick to those principles. And if it means that at some point you get voted out for sticking to your principles, you will be glad to go to your voters and say, you know what, we stuck to our principle, we stuck to the promises that we've made to you. It didn't get us, to keep government, but we're glad that we stuck to the principles, and you can trust us that when we say something, we do, stay to it.
I'll come back to the question of principles and what you've delivered to your voters, but let's bring in Bongani here. Bongani, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but as ActionSA, you would have wanted the DA to canvass the vote of the EFF, yes or no?
Well, it's important to appreciate that Ekurhuleni is a minority government. And the fact that there was a minority government installed democratically was because the EFF voted for this minority government. In fact, every one of us voted for the DA, and they were governing under duress, and they had to come to us to coalesce around a coalition. So I think it's important to set that scene correctly. Because if you raise the impression that the vote of the EFF is tainted, so it was tainted from the onset which voted for the DA then. And they were very happy with us to govern in the coalition party. And we raised the fact that this is a minority coalition government, which will present severe risk to an institution such as Ekurhuleni. Number one, you will render it unstable, and it will be constantly fending off attacks because of other opposition parties on the outside trying to find their way back in. And we raised this, and it was not dealt with. So where we stand as the ActionSA, we feel very disappointed by the outcome, even though it was expected. And secondly, we want to congratulate and thank Mayor Tania for the work that she has done over the past 11 months and the team that has worked with her. And we remain prepared to go to the coalition benches and defend the gains that we have made as a party with the work of our MMCs and the coalition government. But we were bitterly disappointed that we were not able to find each other on very pragmatic grounds, because it's important for us to appreciate that in as much as we raise principle and raise all of these wonderful things we do, but at the same time we are beneficiaries of those whom we don't want them to vote for us, who have voted for us. Yeah. And it's quite important for us to really put the residents at the center, and stability of these institutions in Gauteng at the center.
As you thank Tania Campbell for the work that she has done in the last 11 months, let's talk about these issues then that have been raised. They've been raised by the ANC, but the other minority parties, ICM, NFP, UDM, COPE, AIC, PAC, and ATM have also raised similar issues. The financial situation in the metro, they are quite worried about that. In fact, the words that they use, that the financial instability in the city is at a crisis level. The city is in the brink of collapse. Mr. Lesufi, let's bring you in here first. Is that the state of the finances in the city? And how do we get there?
Check the reports. We left a municipality with a healthy bank balance. We left the municipality with a clean audit, not even any other, a clean audit. We left a municipality that was servicing all citizens of Ekurhuleni. We left a municipality that was hands-on. When this crisis, the mayor, executive, and the members of the mayoral committee will go to the communities and engage those communities. What did we get in return in the last 10 months? There was an uprising in Tembisa. We have to force the mayor to go there. She was not willing to go there. People have to bend down municipal offices. It shows a leadership that does not care. You check their finances. They have to choose between paying ESCOM, rent, water, and paying salaries, something that was not there before. Similar in Tshwane. It's exactly the same in Tshwane as well, that they're going through those difficulties. So we felt that we can't wait for things to collapse and say, we told you things have collapsed. We felt we need to intervene and intervene now. And the intervention was appreciated by other political parties. And for that, we're grateful. We'll work with those coalition partners that are there. We're starting from tomorrow, just to find each other and ensure that we don't make the same or commit the same mistakes that the other coalition partners did before they came to work with the African National Congress.
Yeah, who's going to be at the helm of that leadership?
That is why we are working with the coalition partners. We don't want to impose that. If there's a best person from any other party that is working with us to be the executive mayor and be part of the mayoral committee, we'll openly endorse and embrace that.
How are you going to turn it around? I mean, if you're coming in and you're inheriting such a crisis where this metro is unable to honor monthly financial commitments to service providers.
The good thing is that Ekurhuleni is a test case. The irony is that Ekurhuleni is a test case. We ran Ekurhuleni for 5 years as a coalition government. There was no single motion of no confidence in that municipality because we respected our coalition partners. We had a healthy bank balance. We had everything that the municipality should be in a position to produce, a clean audit. So we ran that municipality before, so we know where to turn it around. It's just unfortunate that this coalition government could not take advantage of the firm foundation that we've laid as the African National Congress in that municipality.
Mr. Msimanga, what happened? What did you do in the 11 months? Why is the Metro bankrupt?
History has no blank pages, and I invite you to go back into history and look at the amount of projects that were started, in the previous term by Mswanzile Masina that are now rendering the city's finances, leaking as they are. If you go and look at the fact that you have the tuk-tuk contracts that are still needing with the tuk-tuks that have been bought and that are now lying in scrap yards, and some of them are lying now in junk yards. You have vehicles, municipal vehicles, that for over a period of 8 to 10 years have been lying in mechanic workshops that haven't been serviced, and that now needs to be serviced. And there hasn't been any new vehicles that have been bought in that municipality. And these are things that we now need to be addressing. You have over 2 billion rand that has been spent in the previous administration in terms of a BRT system that is supposed to have been linking residents of Tembisa, to Kempton Park and the surrounding areas and all other townships, including Potwatwa and all of that. That 2 billion rand has been spent, and we haven't really seen what has been done, so far. You're sitting with, electricity infrastructure that we have spent hundreds of millions, and that those projects have actually been lying idle and haven't been completed. Now, as I'm talking to you today, the city had to then decide on which of the projects needs now to be put on hold, because there were just so many projects that were started that were not properly funded. And in certain instances, the funding has actually then escalated. These are things that Mr. Lesufi is not talking to, is not answering to, that this is what has led to the collapse of the financial position or the financial standing in that municipality. But again, as I'm saying to you, history has got no blank pages. You can actually
explain to me this then, Solly. Why does it seem, according to these other minority parties, it is collapsing in your hands? So if you're saying these are things that are historic, that were there, why does it seem they are collapsing in your hands?
It's not collapsing, Thabo. I think there is a little bit far-fetched to then say that things are collapsing. They are not collapsing. And by the way, one of the other reasons that they brought is that there's a tariff increase which is imposed on residents, which is absolute lies, because this was actually a policy that had been passed in that council before we actually took over. And realizing that there's also a lot of corruption that has been taking place with the indigent program, we had actually then started looking at doing an audit into the indigent beneficiaries, and then starting to root out those that were put into the indigent program, but were not really qualifying to be there. And Dr. Lesufi also talks about the Tembisa uprising, but then you must tell us who were then sponsoring those things that were happening then in Tembisa, because again, you realize that you're out of government. You realize that you want to do anything and everything to then bring instability into a municipality. You go and sponsor these kind of things in the townships, which are, by the way, things that you have actually led. The amount of infrastructure backlog in terms of maintenance in those same townships, goes into billions of rands. And this is not only happening in the city of Ekurhuleni. It's happening in the city of Johannesburg. It's happening in the city of Tshwane. Rainwater right now has been saying that they're losing so much water. The question is what has been done for two decades that they had been in charge of this particular municipality. So these are some of the things that he needs to respond to, instead of saying the last 11 months things have collapsed completely, without putting into context what has led to that collapse there.
Yeah, he will. I'm sure he heard you, and he'll respond to that. Mr. Baloyi, let me bring you in here as well. I mean, according to the ANC, they left clean audits, they left a liquid metro. Is that what you discovered when you went in? Was it a liquid metro? Were they taking care of paying bills? And why are we today in a situation where we can't pay service providers?
Look, I think there's this conversation requires a certain, in fact, a level of honesty from all of us. One, there's objective factors which affect the budget of the municipality. These we can't run away from. One, it was that we come from a COVID era which exacerbated financial constraints on the municipality. In that period between 2018, 19 and 2020, we had the institution held back on collection, and therefore the debtors book grew significantly, while consumption of these trading services increased without the necessary payment, which kept in line with the consumption. And equally recently, what we've seen, which has dealt with a significant financial blow on the institution, is the issue of Eskom, where in July they lost 2 billion rands, and the month following they lost about, I think, 1.2 billion rands, which is quite significant. But there's also some subjective factors which contribute to the management of a situation in such an operating environment. And this is which was demonstrated by a lack of experience by the leadership which is there. In as much as they did well, but we also saw today in council where they're starting, because they put together a budget which was informed by a number of assumptions, and part of those assumptions is a payment rate of about, I think, 86%. And when you look today, when they're trying to curb on expenditure, I mean, these are assumptions when you must make them from an informed basis and from solid understanding, and also an appreciation of the past, which is very important, because comparing various performance periods is very important for local government, where you build a benchmark and a basis for future projection. And I think those are parts where we can't run away from. They must sit with the leadership, including our MMCs who were in these positions. And we can't wish these away. There are things that the ANC has done in the past, but we must also not wash our hands completely clean of the situation, because we had to manage the situation. And more so when we came in a period where we had to deal with an adjustment budget, but equally we tabled a budget on the basis of some assumptions, notwithstanding the challenges in the operating environment, which has made it difficult for municipalities. And if you consider the importance of the electricity tariff and revenue from electricity to municipalities, which is able to cross-subsidize other areas as well. So if that takes a blow of about 3.2 billion rand, that's very significant. So I thought it's quite important to share with you a very balanced view, and not just point to the ANC, but at the same time we must appreciate the impact of coalitions and changes of leadership, where in the case now, the leadership that was at the helm was having to build institutional capacity, memory, and understanding of the environment, and being able to make better decisions and management going forward. And now there's a change of guard. And I think whoever comes in will face the same consequences. And unfortunately for the residents, this will be a difficult time, at least for the foreseeable future, because you need more than a year or 2 years in local government to actually stabilize and grow and improve your operational performances and efficiencies internally. And unfortunately, this fluidity of coalitions and movement of coalitions from one governing coalition to the next is going to deal decisively to service delivery, and ultimately the poorest of the poor are going to pay the brunt for this.
Let's take a break. When we come back, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to those issues that are being raised. Too many unfinished projects, mismanagement of the indigent program, and of course some of the infrastructure that had debt that you did not pay for. We'll talk to those issues when In Focus continues next. Stay with us. Back tonight on In Focus, still with the provincial leadership of the various parties, Democratic Alliance, ActionSA, and the ANC here in the Gauteng province. Premier of Gauteng Panyaza Lesufi, also the chairperson of the ANC here in the province. So just respond to these issues, because if these issues that they're raising are true, then your motion of no confidence on Tania Campbell is disingenuous. If indeed, for example, you sponsored the violence in Tembisa, it's disingenuous to say she of course didn't respond to that. If you had number of unfunded projects that you left in the city that they had to come in and of course pick up from you, which were not funded, would explain why they're in financial difficulty.
I'm glad that Mr. Baloyi was frank in his analysis. This municipality was inexperienced. They had an inexperienced leadership. They didn't budget properly. They didn't know what was happening in that municipality. They didn't even know what they inherited when they led that municipality. They were just excited that they've been voted in there. And they articulated it correctly on those issues. But if you say you have sponsored people to protest against a certain political party, you must provide evidence. You know, there's a tired line. When people are protesting against ANC's democracy, when it's a protest against other political parties, they are sponsored. Did they go to any police station to lay a charge? Do they have evidence? Who sponsored it? Who paid it? And for what? You can't just throw general statements because they sound good on television, on voters' ears, or you can escape blame purely by pointing fingers and other issues. I really feel that the DA is bankrupt on this matter. They didn't know how to manage angry residents because they're inexperienced. They've never been part of that thing. If you get a clean audit, which is done by the independent body called the Auditor General, it means that we've got a going concern. It means we've got a municipality that can continue to operate. Can it continue to operate now? No. And they're correct when they say it collapsed in their hands. They don't want to take blame purely because they very feel that it's sound to say there was corruption. If there's corruption, the Prevention of Corruption Act clearly stipulates if you know corruption, you go and lay a charge. Did they lay a charge about those corruption? They say their VIA is not working. I come from the East End. I come from that area in Tembisa. It's working. It's moving. It's taking people there. Maybe he's from Tshwane. He's not aware that there are VIAs working. He's moving from Tembisa to Captain Park and other areas. But we are not focusing on those issues. We are focusing on rebuilding that municipality, rendering services to our people, ensuring that the number of new potholes that came when they took the municipality, they become history, and that garbage that is not collected. You go on the service line of Ekurhuleni, the Twitter account, and the social media accounts. Everyone is complaining about poor services. Garbage is not collected. Potholes, long grasses, and many other things. Because they don't have answers. The only way is to have a tired line. Corruption, ANC, corruption, they sponsored this. I think voters will take them serious one day. They will know what it means to run government, and they will understand that part.
Solly Msimanga, the inability to run because of inexperience. In fact, one of the issues that have been raised is the deliberate lowering of requirements and experiences, appointing unqualified individuals in senior management posts. This is what minority parties are saying this particular administration did.
Well, that's absolutely not true. I think, first of all, let's say that we do acknowledge that we were inexperienced. We were inexperienced in corruption and cooking books. That's what we were inexperienced in. What Ntate Baloyi started talking to was, what COVID had actually, put in terms of all the municipalities across, and that we do take. But what he also must acknowledge is that if you look at the AG's report, it will then raise a number of things, including projects that are outstanding. And actually, we were talking about 80% of the project now in Ekurhuleni that, are outstanding. And there's actually a lot of, money that is required to then continue to then run these projects. Ntate Lesufi, I think, needs to be corrected in terms of when you're looking at issues of audit, what you look at. It is not only when you get a clean audit. It's not only the fact that you have money in the bank. It's an issue of also whether you're able to then account for what you are doing. So if you can get an audit, but there might be things that you acknowledge in a clean audit, but there are things that you acknowledge along the way that you're saying you will correct, and then you state how you will correct them. Then you are awarded an audit. So these are some of the things that have been there and have always been there for a very, very long time. This is what I'm saying. History doesn't have a blank page. Go back, look at this projects that we're talking to, and you're able to then realize that there's a problem. Look at the bus system as an example. He then says that the bus system is operating. Go look at how much has been spent on that bus the project to date, and look at what we have been able to receive. And look at, if you were to then spend amount of money and do it honestly and do it properly, how far would we have been right now? Which is something that now has to be corrected, because that same infrastructure, go to the mall, the Tembisa Mall, just outside the Tembisa Mall, there's a bridge that is being built there, which was supposed to be one of the stations there that has a lift. It's not working, that building is not working. In fact, right next to it, you'll find that there's a BRT van that sells tickets out of that particular van there, while the building is standing there idling. So, these are some of the examples that we can then talk to when we want to then respond to what is the mess that has been that has been there. Ntate Lesufi then talks about the issue of the grass cutting. This is an issue that is long time coming and has always been there even before we took over. And this is why I'm saying part of the problem is that you're already now sitting with a fleet problem. You're sitting with a fleet problem where under their own administration, these are things that had been neglected for the longest of time. Ekurhuleni hasn't been buying vehicles, haven't been servicing vehicles, and now you are struggling because now you realize that you want to fast track the issue of servicing, people, but you are then constrained because you now have to then deal with the backlog that has been created by that administration. But this is things that he doesn't want to, acknowledge here. But let me say one more thing, Tabu. Go to the scrapyards and go to some of the mechanics there. You'll find ambulances. You'll find the municipal vehicles that they are saying that they are not willing to release because some of these vehicles have now been staying there for over 7, 8, 10 years. And these are things that you're now either going to need to write off or you're going to now need to pay. And when you realize that the amount of money that you will have to pay, it's as good as you buying new vehicles. And the municipality is not in that position to do that. I think these are things that he now needs to then acknowledge. Yeah. But maybe let me conclude this section by saying that there's a lot that all of us must, learn from this, the whole thing. Is that, the people cannot continue to have us squabbling about who is right and who is wrong. But what people want is service. And we need to be honest about our failures. And we need to be able to then say, this is what we can do in order for us to be able to do.
We are completely out of time. A quick one, Bongani Baloyi, the ANC coming back into power. People want to know, are they going to get services? From inside view, you're there, you're looking at it. We've got these two parties that are always at each other, but ultimately what we want is service delivery.
Well, I don't know whether you have since become a Sangoma, because I'm not sure whether ANC is back in power. Maybe ask a different question. What happens when on the 7th day when council convenes ActionSA candidate is elected mayor? And I can certainly tell you that there will be a delivery of services. There will be an appreciation of a very complex institution that requires a leadership that is up to the task. And that's what we're going for, because we believe that we gave the DA an opportunity, we were led under them, but we believe we possess a bit more of the nuances that would ensure that the city thrives and becomes a sustainable city. So in the event the ANC were to win, we'll tell you what we make of that. But at this stage, I don't think it's correct to count us out of this one. We're also in the game. We're also quite serious about delivering and ensuring that we lead on behalf of our communities in a representative democracy to deliver and improve.
Throwing a spanner in the works. So quickly put on the other hat now. Not the chairperson of the ANC, but the Premier of Gauteng. We heard the minister today saying you've agreed to take on 30% of the debt of the e-tolls. I heard you earlier saying you still need to go back and speak to the people of Gauteng, essentially to say, how do we pay for this? So ultimately, we are still going to pay for it.
Well, from what? From 100% to 30%. It's something that I think we should appreciate, that this issue of e-tolls has been a problem for quite some time. That is why the new administration, when it came in, it prioritized it. We went for robust debates and discussions. It was very difficult. We had this challenge, Tabu. The entire road infrastructure cost 47 billion. So there's a loan that we had to service. And to service that loan, to date, we have paid 26 billion. So we are paying 26 billion interest on a 47 billion debt. And that 26 billion does not even reduce the debt. People that are paying for e-tolls, they've paid up to 6 billion. So we have an increase of people that are paying, and then you've got people that are not paying, and we have to pay the interest. On top of that, we need 5.2 billion to maintain the infrastructure. So we had to cut the umbilical cord at one stage because the status quo can't just continue. So we went to the bargaining table with National to say these roads are not Gauteng roads only. There are people from other provinces that are using the roads. Actually, these are national roads. So we are not prepared to take over the debt because they wanted to take us to take 100% of the debt. So we are not prepared. And we bargained until, because we have to bargain until somewhere, because there was this mid-term budget. If we didn't bargain before that, would have lost everything. So we settled for 30%, and we really believe it will be a major relief to people of Gauteng that the e-tolls are finally gone. They are history now. And then we'll consult. We don't want to commit the same mistake. We'll consult the people of Gauteng how we service that 30%. And hopefully it will be a mechanism that is a win-win for all of us.
Appreciate your time. Not kept you a little bit longer than you were due to stay with us, but thank you very much for your time. Premier of Gauteng, as well as a leader of ActionSA in Gauteng and leader of Democratic Alliance in Gauteng, Solly Msimanga. We appreciate your time.